So today, guys, I want to talk about why I am not shaken out by this price action in the market, and especially as we've seen recently Solana going into this heavy sell-off, causing a lot of drama, and everybody's focused on the wrong thing. I want to focus on the right thing, and this is what we want to be really paying attention to into today's video, to understand exactly how big this is and what kind of big moves can we expect. Now, you all guys can agree that the stock market is somewhat more regulated and more trusted than cryptocurrencies, right? So we might look into the stock market and what the stock market is doing compared to cryptocurrencies, and we're going to use Ethereum as the main crypto, or altcoin as it is the largest altcoin. As you can see, when it goes down, other meme coins and altcoins go down with it. So it is a very major important factor and major player in the crypto space to be looking at Ethereum here. So the Russell 2000 below here is the low caps, basically US stock low caps. So it's not only an old season problem only when it comes to crypto, but it's an old season problem also when it comes to US stocks. So the Russell down below here is basically the low caps tracker index, or what you would call the others index in the crypto space. And it is perfectly tracking ETH and most of the oldest or previous cycle altcoins as well. So whenever it goes up, as you can see here, we're gonna put a line right after this major dip. You see here, this is the lockdown, the bugs. And right after it, we've seen this major pump here in 2020 and 2021, right? With everybody became a stock expert and everybody started to invest into stock memes and AMC and GME and all those things you probably heard of. And your best friend was buying Tesla stocks. This was basically this time. And this time as well, this is ETH rallying as well. And ETH basically outperforms it. And when ETH is outperforming the Russell, this means also altcoins that are even lower market caps than ETH outperform ETH. So it all goes down into this kind of fashion where Bitcoin moves, then ETH, then large caps, and then we have all season. This is basically what we've seen in 2021, and I'm gonna shortly get into what we're seeing today. But the Russell 2000 now, since 2021, it exactly topped, kid you not, and you can see here for your own eyes, it topped at the same time as ETH. Now you would say, what caused these two to top at the same time? Was it China banning Bitcoin? Was it crypto related? Was it because Solana insiders trading? Why did the Russell top at the same time as ETH, as the same time as Bitcoin, at the same time as the stock market, at the same time as everything else? Well, because it all comes down to the global liquidity. These stocks here also need investors to have some sort of appetite to start buying up low cap stocks. These are stocks, that companies that we're talking about, these are companies that are actually doing something useful in the world. They are creating something, right? Those are not meme coins or altcoins, or let alone even Solana or Ethereum. These are actually things that we use day to day. They're not getting the phones. They're not getting people. They need people still to buy their stocks to actually for them to go up. Yes, it's all a Ponzi from the stock market to the cryptocurrencies, but they all follow the same things and the same rule, which is global liquidity. They need money. They need people to have money on hand and be greedy enough to start buying these stuff here. So stocks, cryptos, whatever, gold, silver, they all need people to have money to start buying them. So we can see clearly here that the Russell went on this bear market, ETH went on the bear market. Now recently in October of 2023, we've seen the sell-off in the stock market or Russell 2000 index, while ETH did not really pull that hard here. Now, given as well that ETH seen a major pullback in the bear market, so it did not pull as hard, but then the recovery on the Russell also timed with the recovery on ETH. The only difference is that the Russell took its previous all-time high from 2021 while ETH didn't. Now few of those few altcoins did take their all-time high, like Solana and XRP, while it did not. The thing is here, or what matters, the Russell 2000 is still below its all-time high. It also got rejected from its all-time high. It also couldn't sustainably break above its all-time high. While if we look back in time, it was going pretty well, and when it broke out of its previous ranges here, it did went on this large impressive rally. So even the Russell 2000 does go into these massive rallies, which we haven't seen yet since basically 2022, and this also times with the Fed increasing the rates and the global liquidity started to go down. So now this is one major reason why I'm not worried about the market, and especially about the altcoins, because I see this as more of a global economy problem than whatever the new thing that the cryptocurrency space is talking about, what if it's Solana problem, or if it's an insider problem because the meme coins, or it's because this or that. But basically we are not yet on a real altcoin or real massive euphoria greed time where actually investors are very greedy and buying up stuff, and we see clearly they are not. So it's mainly institutions. Now you can see here clearly, just to touch on that fear and greed today. This is a screenshot from today, and still at 37, and it's still at its lowest point ever, which is basically the best time to buy, and it is at its lowest level, which also tells us the market is still pretty much, the charts are telling us what the market is doing, which is market is not into greed at all, and people are not buying at all. So will they buy at some point? That's what we want to know. And basically it all ties down, as I said, to the global liquidity, which is something we can add now to the chart and see what's going on. If we add the global liquidity, you see that since 2021, this also timed very well with the top on it, and as well on the Russell. This was pretty much the top for everything. So this is the only thing that matters, is the global liquidity. If it tops, everything else tops, from your $1 million market cap coin to your $1 trillion market cap coin. It does not matter. So when it goes up, the $1 trillion market cap coin goes up. From the 1 trillion to the $1 million market cap coin, everything goes up. So it's pretty much all goes hand in hand, and pretty much when the global liquidity goes up, everything else starts to go up. Even now we've seen that as soon as the global liquidity sees an uptick here, we start to see also altcoins see an uptick and starts to rally. And basically the global liquidity is just telling us how much money is in hands of people, and it's tracking that. So you can see whenever it rallies, a few weeks after that, we see Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, everything else starts to rally. Whenever it rallies, we see everything else starts to rally. And now this is why the tattoo says big move coming soon. As you can see, we're seeing a major move back up from global liquidity, while it is still here, not moving. So usually this is the global liquidity is a signal which tells us what to do next, or what will happen next a few weeks before it happens. So it's been doing this pretty accurately recently. So even this bear market time here, when it went up, it was also a signal that things are gonna start to go up. Now what we really want to see is actually the global liquidity breaking out here and starting to rally finally, and this is what's gonna mark the actual start of the altcoin season and the actual start of the bull market. That's why I keep saying the bull market or the altcoin season is still yet to happen, and you've probably seen this. A lot of people as well are seeing the same thing, because we all are seeing the same thing. We haven't really seen, if you just had just one bull market, or if you just lived through a bull market before, you know that what we had this far is nothing compared to what we've seen before. Now, besides being on the trenches or on Solana pump fund, nothing really was showing any significant strength that we can say for sure that this was a very massive altcoin season. Now we do have those little altcoin seasons that happen here and there that we can make money off, but the real major one where everybody actually makes money off that had been early enough, that one has not happened yet, which is the one we've seen in 2021, and also in 2017 here, when we've seen this sustained rally by the global liquidity, which caused a massive also bull market. So both both of these things did not happen yet. And just to pull up the Russell one more time, you can see as well the Russell, which is the stock market, the low caps, is also struggling and also needs the global liquidity to start to move back up. And since now we're seeing this little uptick on the global liquidity, we're probably going to start to see in the next week the Russell moving up, and as well ETH and altcoins as well moving up. Will that be the actual rally to cause the real altcoin season? We don't know yet, but what we really need to pay attention to is to actually have a sustained global liquidity rally. So that could be caused by either Trump doing something with the economy, or the tariffs, or the Fed's cutting rates, which is basically the most important factor here. But we have to wait for that to happen. What we know for sure here, or what this global liquidity index is telling us, is that we are seeing an uptick, which means money is being distributed to people, which usually precedes a rally by ETH. Now we see this. The second thing we really want to look at as well is what's happening now, or what we usually see is that before, in 2017 and in 2021, we usually see Bitcoin rally, then ETH or Solana or any large cap, or as well, and then you have your top 50 coins, and then you have your all season. Now this far, since 2023, we've only seen one simple thing happen, which is Bitcoin pumps forever and just keeps pumping because institutions are buying it. And shortly I'm going to show you also Bitcoin against the S&P and why institutions now getting into Bitcoin is just going to keep Bitcoin going up. What we see now is as soon as Bitcoin gives any sort of confidence in the market, degening starts to rise up. We start to see more pump fund and degeneracy happening in the market, while we see a very weak altcoin season where the altcoins are not really that strong. So that's pretty much what we've seen since 2023, and that's also one more reason why a lot of people are saying that the altcoin season hasn't happened yet, because we were not going into that. We did not follow the usual path. Now we're following this path, and we can argue that the reason why people prefer degening now is because they don't have a lot of money to go actually participate in a stronger altcoin season. So people have $100 or $1,000 and they prefer to gamble that away for a quick 2x or 10x than actually buy and hold and participate in the altcoin season. So that's what we've seen so far, and this is also caused by, you can argue that the global liquidity index is telling us that more and more people have less and less money, so they are more inclined to actually degen than actually participate in an altcoin season. Now, what I do think is going to happen as soon as the global liquidity is going to play out is this part of the cycle is going to play out, where Bitcoin, ETH, large caps in all season. This is what's going to play out next, which means long-term holds are more favorable over degening, which always been the case for me, but it's going to start to make more sense now to people, especially as we're seeing now the Solana FUD happening and people are waking up to the gambling is not the real way to go, and probably that will time well with the global liquidity going up and the rate cuts. And for some reason, the simulation is so perfectly aligned that everything happens all at once and everything aligns and works fine. So that's the thing here that I'm expecting, or that I'm looking at to be really a major case in 2025, where we're going to see less degening and more of a sustained rally in all season. And that's why I'm still confident and bullish and sitting on my hands and confident that we're going to see that major rally happen as soon as the global liquidity, the rate cuts and all that aligns well and starts to play out. We're going to start to see these things playing out as well, with the Russell breaking out and ETH breaking above its all-time high, sending everything else up with it. Now, as when it comes to what's happening today, as you can see now, the altcoin index or the altcoin season is pretty much in the middle now, telling us there is pretty much no altcoin season. And usually it goes into that higher band whenever we have an altcoin season, and usually it should stay above, or it stays in the blue part here for a longer period of time before we start to say that we have a sustained altcoin season. The same thing when it comes to the fear and greed. This is the March 2024 short-term altcoin season, you can call it, and this is the end of 2024, or let's say Trump pump. Also, that was a short-term altcoin season. There was not once a sustained altcoin season this far. So maybe this next one is going to be it, as we are now at the lowest band, which is max fear now 37. It's pretty much the highest amount of fear we've ever had now, or the third time we had that. So it's pretty much now the third time is a charm, and pretty much the next rally will lead us towards the actual major meme coin or altcoin season. As to when it comes to Bitcoin, we can clearly see that Bitcoin now is an actual Wall Street asset. It's a big bank asset, is an institutional asset. And down below here we have the SPX, and up top we have Bitcoin, and you can clearly see how Bitcoin is following the S&P 500 and following the stock market or the larger, broader market. As you can see, the SPX, the S&P 500 broke above its all-time high and sustainably rallied above its all-time high the same way Bitcoin did. And this is something we cannot say about any other cryptocurrency out there, and it's just simply because Bitcoin now has an ETF, and it's gonna have this constant institutional bid where institutions are constantly buying it, and it's just gonna keep following the S&P. As long as the S&P is rallying, Bitcoin is gonna keep rallying, and we're seeing clearly the decoupling now, where Bitcoin is completely decoupled from altcoins, where a lot of people now are saying this is the worst bull market ever, because they still compare it to the previous cycles where usually when Bitcoin rallies, altcoins follow. But now Bitcoin is rallying just because it's linked to the S&P, and because institutions are buying does not mean institutions are gonna buy other altcoins. Maybe they're gonna start buying now ETH, as it is an ETF or has an ETF. But this far, ETH is being treated more like more like the Russell 2000, more like a low cap stock than it is treated as a large cap stock like Bitcoin. So we clearly see this playing out here, which means now that people are gonna keep complaining and keep comparing cycles through Bitcoin lens, where why Bitcoin is above 100K, why Bitcoin is pumping and altcoins are not pumping. Well, the reason, as I said, is, and as I shown you in this video, is now altcoins are most likely following ETH than they are following Bitcoin. It is completely uncoupled from the actual market now. Bitcoin is doing its own thing. Bitcoin is gonna keep following the S&P as it has this institutional bid. A lot of people are gonna be trying to call for the tops on Bitcoin, while this is not the way to do it, in my opinion, this cycle. As if we keep looking at Bitcoin, we're gonna miss out the bigger picture, or miss out what altcoin can do with that. Now we can clearly see now, if I add down below the Russell, and see how Bitcoin is actually outperforming the Russell, which is the stock market or the low cap stocks index. You can see how far Bitcoin is above its all-time high, or 2021 all-time high, compared to the Russell, which is or got rejected from its all-time high, from the 2021 all-time high. So also, if we add the global liquidity, we can see that Bitcoin as well is benefiting much more from a small percentage of from a small increase of global liquidity, while the Russell 2000 is not. So that means Bitcoin is still got a long way to go up as soon as the liquidity starts to go up. And also shows how stronger Bitcoin against the Russell 2000 and how correlated now it is to the S&P. So I do think personally it is not very practical now to be looking at Bitcoin and comparing Bitcoin rallies to previous cycles and comparing that to the altcoins and saying that altcoins must pump if Bitcoin is pumping. So it is really uncorrelated to it this far. And what you really want to be tracking now is ETH and the ETH performance against the Russell, since ETH right now has an ETF, and we want to see this playing out. And very likely as well, this is a very early sign that we might start to see ETH follow the Russell as much as Bitcoin is following the S&P. So this far the Russell is looking good and still on this macro uptrend, while it's not an aggressive one, but it's still kind of trending higher with no impulsive moves yet, which also indicates a low liquidity environment when you see candles just barely going up, which means the global liquidity is very thin, not many investors are in. And it tells me as well we haven't seen the real true impact of a real monetary cycle, which means what we would call a 4-year cycle or liquidity cycle, which means when the liquidity gets injected back into the economy, assets like the stock market and cryptocurrencies benefit from it. And this hasn't happened yet. And this is as well why we're waiting still for an altcoin season to happen. And I'm still optimistic that we're going to have one, and a major one. For one last time, I'm going to add the global liquidity just to show you how big this can get and how deep this pullback on the global liquidity is. And imagine when this actually takes out the previous high. So that's actually how big we can expect the next altcoin season, or the actual altcoin season and the actual bull market to be. Now, we might see a short-term volatility and stagnation and not much happening, as now it's still early in the year, and we still have to see what Trump is gonna do. And since Trump is new in the office now, markets don't like uncertainty, and they want to wait and see what they're gonna what he's gonna do and what kind of bills he's gonna pass. And this also, Jerome Powell from the Fed said that he still waits for Trump bills and Trump new regulations and new policies, and how are they going to affect the banks and affect the global liquidity and affect the economy. And then they're going to take it from there, possibly making new changes and possibly cutting the rate, which Trump himself said that he wants to lower the rates. That means the global liquidity starts to rally higher. Anyways, guys, hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching today's video till the end, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.